EAGLES. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen. Week number 4 of the Eagles offseason. It's Super Bowl week, everybody. Get your picks in. Let me know what you guys are doing to watch the big game this weekend. J-Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Doing well. A little bit late. Trying to fix some issues on my side. Doesn't work. Goes in the opposite direction.
It's a tough start to February for tech for us, John.
By the way, I can't see the audience either, so I need to log in. You got to give me that.
No, that's what happened. That's why you had to reset everything. It logged you out. It logged you out of the guest account, which probably had all your settings pre-saved.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, now I've identified why everything was reset, J-Mac. Now I've identified. We do it on the air here. I'll get it fixed for you after the show today. All right.
All right. We'll power through.
We're going to have to power through. So you can't see the comments. You can't see the great people of JAKIB Nation.
Well, I can't see the audience level. I can see the comments.
Okay, you can see the comments. You can still see the knuckleheads. You can't see how many of them are in here. I got you.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's what it goes. So hopefully we'll power through it.
Good stuff.
Some business on air.
Yeah, a little business on air. It comes or happens to us here when you do shows online for 5 years. It is what it is. John, where are we on Eagle Land? I'll tell you, it's Super Bowl week. You know, everybody's getting ready to go. I want to look at some key dates today. We're going to talk to Brandon Lee Gout in hour number 2. We won't talk to Mike Gill today, who's down at Radio Row or Content Row, whatever you want to call it nowadays. It's not quite Radio Row anymore, but it did look good, but doesn't feel like it's as big as it was when the Eagles were there. I don't know if that's because I'm an Eagles guy or not. I'll get your take on that. But let's get some key dates, John, and just kind of the update where we are here on a Wednesday morning before the Super Bowl.
I thought you were going to go Pro Bowl games on me. Pro Bowl games.
You know what, John? I was out of the studio last night, and I didn't even catch the Pro Bowl games.
I didn't catch the Pro games either, but I saw some people were excited, I guess. Jalen led some kind of comeback. I don't even know. I can't. It should be. I shouldn't say that because I should be paying attention because it is revolving around the NFL. But, you know, I've been to a lot of Super Bowls. Obviously, I'm not there this year because the Eagles aren't there. So, you know, I'm not watching the Pro Bowl games. I'm sorry, people. So if you got excited by that, good for you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But, boy, yeah. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? I'm still worried.
Hat trick for Jalen Hurts, John. Is this correct?
I don't know. I mean, it's a flag football. It's a flag football game.
Apparently, the people in the chat are saying hat trick for QB1. Big start to the comeback.
I did see a lot of comments that were really. It seemed like legitimately excited. I'm like, I'm not picking on the guy. I'm talking about it. It's a flag football game. And I'm scared to death they're going to turn the league that way. I really am. I tell that story all the time. Irv Mushnick deserves credit. He's an author. Look him up. Writes some good books. But he told me that like 15 years ago, and I laughed at him. I think he was right. I think he was right.
Yeah, I've heard you say that story.
I'm not saying next year. I'm not saying it's coming, though. Because, I mean, boy, I mean, everybody's too soft. I hate to say it, but it's too violent in a game. And they're going to pull the plug at some point. And if people get that excited over flag football, it's going to help them. So I wouldn't get that excited about flag football. Just my 2 cents. There's my pet peeve of the day.
Well, speaking of the Super Bowl week, that's the Pro Bowl. Speaking of the Super Bowl week, did you happen to catch what Milton Williams had to say?
About the difference between New England and Philly?
No, I saw he mentioned something about he never got a contract offer with the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Eagles knew they were losing Milton. They're not in that conversation. Yeah. That was
He said he had basically no contact with them before the free agency period as well. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even seem like they ever tried to get the deal done.
No, you got to make tough decisions in this league. You can't. They knew what he was going to make, and they couldn't go in that direction. So that's one of those.
Well, I guess I feel like even if you know, don't you still like reach out just in case? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm off base on it.
No, that's just business as usual. From day one, I hope we reported on the show constantly. Milton's not coming back. I mean, it's just not. It just wasn't tenable. He's going to make too much money. Bet on himself. I said it all the time. He hit a home run. Great player. Proved it again this year. There's no way I thought he could live up to that contract, and he did. So I give him a ton of credit. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the Eagles just weren't prepared, and you don't want to insult the player and say, "Well, we'll bring you back for $15 million or something like that." They were just never in the ballpark. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. At all.
Well, there you go, Vic. He is out there. I thought I'm excited for Milton. I hope he gets he's maybe one of the reasons that I will not be at all upset if the Patriots win the football. I will be happy for Milton Williams to be back there and to get the W. So good stuff there on Milton Williams. John, the other thing that's already seems to be like a foregone conclusion here earlier in the offseason, and it's not, to be clear, but it's appearing that it is. And I think to the casual or even the committed viewer, they will see the same. Everywhere I go, John, right now, every NFL outlet, every Eagles outlet, CBS, they all got A.J. Brown trade articles running all over the place. Like, man, it's really escalated.
That part of the year. Yeah, everybody's going to do. Look, I think he's more likely to be somewhere else than in Philadelphia next year. I've been pretty consistent with that. I don't think it's 99% or anything like that. I think it's more 52-48 type of thing. But I mean, when you have a situation where the player's obviously not happy, I don't think the team is happy because the player's not happy. It's going to, I always thought they would try to talk him in and do, run it back for one more year to try to talk. But how do you do that with a 33-year-old? Maybe you can do that with Mike McDaniel. Maybe you can do that with Brian Daboll even. Can you do that with a 33-year-old first-time coordinator with pretty much the same pieces around him? I don't know if that helps it. Still, it's very difficult from a cap standpoint. That's what helps it. If there were no cap issues, I would say 90% he's gone. If there were no cap issues. So that's what everybody's running with. Because, when I always talk about these trade scenarios, and everybody loves trade scenarios, and I say, look at the contract first. Before you start talking about trade, look at the contract first. Is it possible? Is it likely? And I think most people skip that step and they go, well, he's not coming back. Well, it's easier said than done.
Well, where's AJ on those two questions? Possible question and then likely question. Obviously, no for likely, but.
Well, I don't think he wants to be here. But again, that doesn't mean he can.
That's high.
But that doesn't mean you can trade him because of the contract. Like there's a lot of people that want to be traded at certain points and they don't get traded because they can't be traded. Myles Garrett, one day he's once out, one day he's back signing, millions of dollars. I mean, it happens all the time. And, when you have contracts and you're relatively early in them and there's still significant cap ramifications, and there are with AJ, it doesn't make it as easy as saying, oh, well, he doesn't want to be here, so he's not going to be here. And I think that's where, and I don't know which ones you're talking about, but most of the aggregation trade rumor, trade this are they don't look at the contract. They're just saying, well, the player doesn't want to be here. The team's probably a little bit sick of it. So you have all the remedies for a trade. You have all the ingredients for a trade, but that doesn't mean you can get it done either. And plus you have to talk about what's coming back, which is complicated by the size of the contract. Do you rework the contract? Does he get a new contract in his new city? All that kind of stuff. There's things you can do. There's tweak it. Again, you almost have to post June 1st this thing. So that means you're not getting a draft pick this year. You know, if you're, you know, people are hyper focused on getting something now, that's going to be really difficult unless it's player for player. And I don't see that happening, to say the least. So it's a lot of complications, and that's why I'm 52-48 and not 90-10.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, but yeah, from the framework of, I don't think he wants to be here anymore. Yeah, I don't think he wants to be here anymore.
What would you expect that trade to look like?
Well, under the current constraints of the contract, I think, you know, second round pick is what you're starting at, or if you want to be in the first round and you want to attach it to a first round pick, you almost have to trade the first round pick along with, in other words, a move up. In other words, you include the 23rd pick and AJ Brown to get the, I don't know, whatever, 10th pick. You know, maybe something.
Is that a better option than adding an additional 2? Or
well, I'm probably overstating top 10, but you get my point.
Yeah,
I'm just trying
move up. I mean, you could definitely.
You could definitely move up. I'm not sure how much teams value those.
And then go grab your left tackle. Not a bad way to do it there, I don't think.
Yeah, and a lot depends on are you in love with a particular player in the draft. But
somebody said throw him in a trade and go get Max Crosby. I'm like, I'm not sure what you'd have to do for that, but I don't hate it if you're going to let Phillips walk.
But that the standpoint of like just a draft pick, well, that's going to be 2020. What year are we in? 2027, not 2026. Because even if you can designate trades now. They changed that a few years ago, post June 1st. You can do that. You only have 2 post June 1st days, so you have to be careful, but you can do that.
Wait, this is a big caveat. So you're telling me I know about the June 1st thing, but if they designate it for after June 1st, the draft pick that they get back will more than likely be next year's draft, not the upcoming draft?
Yeah, because you can't make it, even though you designate it, it's not official.
Right.
Before June 1st. So you can't take something of value before June 1st. The only post June 1st that helps you is for cap purposes, not anything else. So to make something official, you can't make a trade for a second round pick official in 2026 before June 1st, you know. It's in April.
A huge thing though for this year, for this team this year, because I mean, if you're envisioning a world without AJ Brown next year, you're gonna need draft picks this year or a player. I mean,
well, yeah, then you're gonna have to do player for player, or as I said,
a trade up, I guess.
Yeah, but even that you can't do now that I'm, you know, speaking off the cuff, because again, it can't become official. Otherwise, you hit the salary cap. You can do it, but then you get the salary cap rip right away. So you can't post June 1st the guy you traded before June 1st. Doesn't work that way. So if you want to take the salary cap rip, you can do you can do anything you want. But the presumption is you don't want to take that. And we'll see, you know, pre-June 1st is $43 million of dead cap. Now he's done it before. Jeffrey's done it before. The dead money, that part of it. But, you know, the cap hit is 20, just over 20 million. That's the bigger part of it. Do you want to take that rip? Yeah, and maybe you do. Maybe you just want to take the medicine and get the draft pick. You can do it if you want to do it, but it's much more complicated if you want to do it before June 1st. And obviously, before June 1st is better because that's when everybody has their budget. That's when everybody has their needs. And once you get to June 1st, it's like, well, yeah, that's why you can designate it, but you're not getting the assets until after June 1st.
Very interesting. Could be an interesting offseason with some of that, but good context there from John, per usual. John, let's run through the important dates here this offseason, just so people have an understanding of when to look for what. I know they know, but I want to give them it exactly. Right now, it's February 4th. The first key date I can give everybody is the Super Bowl's February 8th. All right, that's on Sunday in Santa Clara. All right, then you're going to have the combines. You're going to have the period to franchise tag, the beginning of the new league year coming up. Then you'll have free agency. Then you'll have the draft. A lot of good dates coming up. John, let's try and give the people I'm not sure if you were able to pull it up yet. I know I hit you on the fly with it. But the key dates, John, coming up in this offseason, things for Eagles fans to keep an eye on. What do you got? Hit me with the first couple.
Well, the new league year is, I believe, March 11th, which is obviously that means the legal negotiation period. I don't call it the legal tampering period because that's an oxymoron, and that's not what it's called, no matter how many people say it. So it's a pet peeve. March 9th to March 11th. So March 9th is really the date that everyone will be focused on because most of the deals get done
right
from March 9th to March 11th. Then they can become official starting at 4:00 on March 11th. So that's the start of the new league year. Before that, obviously, the scouting combine is at the end of this month, February 23rd. I think it runs through March 2nd. That's where a lot of people do their tampering that they're not allowed to do around the league to set up things for what's upcoming the week after. You mentioned the Super Bowl. February 17th, I should mention, is that's when you can designate franchise or transition players. The Eagles generally don't use that tool, but it'll be something you see around the league. I don't think the Eagles will utilize it. They don't like to utilize it. It's not part of their strategy typically. So I don't think it'll affect the Eagles. March 29th is the annual league meeting. Be nice to be in Phoenix. It's in Phoenix this year. It'd be nice to be in Phoenix right now with this god-awful winter we're having locally. That's a big part of the calendar. From you'll see the coaches' breakfast and all that stuff. And then the draft obviously is April 23rd through the 25th in Pittsburgh. So it's going to be in Western Pennsylvania, which is kind of cool for people out in Pittsburgh. They'll be able to get all the draft hoopla, and that's always a big date around the NFL. So, one thing I never criticized the NFL. I criticized them for a lot, but they set up the calendar nicely. You think about it, we're February 4th, right? The Super Bowl hasn't even happened yet. And when the Super Bowl happens, you're basically a month away from free agency. That's it, man. They're right into it.
Yeah, no doubt. Right into it. They get the new league year started quick. Some good dates there, John. I'll ask you because you got, obviously the draft there. You have the free agency period. Those are the two biggest, acquisition periods for teams, for players. What do you expect them to be a big player in free agency this year? How do you kind of expect them to play that? They didn't really play it last year with any splash moves. We called it the Temu offseason, which ultimately panned out to be true. Of all the moves that they made, not many hit, or not many were of big relevance. What are you expecting from this team in free agency period this time around?
Yeah, a little bit more. I don't think it'll be drastic, and a lot of it's affected by the first conversation we had. Well, you're going to take a $20 million cap hit to trade AJ Brown. Well, you're probably not going to be able to do as much in free agency. So every move affects every other move, which is a pet peeve of Howie Roseman because everybody generally looks at one move and says, oh, this is a good move. This is a bad move. And they're all sort of intertwined. So, I mean, the first thing they have to do is figure out A.J. Brown and Lane Johnson, different circumstances. Is Lane coming back? That's number one on the personnel fronts. Number two is you want to handle your in-house business and what you want to get done from that perspective. So, do you want to bring back Reed Blankenship? Do you want to bring back Jalen Phillips? Do you want to bring back Nakobe Dean? Do you want to bring back Dallas Goedert? You try to handle your in-house business first, and then what you can do and what you can't do affects what you do in free agency. So, I mean, as little as to use – we were talking about Milton Williams. They were never in the conversation for Milton Williams, but somebody like Isaiah Rodgers, they really wanted back. They really wanted him back, and they didn't get him. So, you got to veer off course, and you got to go in a different direction. And obviously, they were Tamu in it, so they brought in Adoree Jackson, who I think overall was fine. I think I got that one right. I said he was going to be the best of the Timo sign.
Yeah, I think you're right. I thought he was okay. I mean, he wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. He late in the year, he wasn't as much of a liability as he was early in the year. They were picking on him early, but I thought he had a good second half of the year.
Yeah, I thought he was fine. Again, not great, but for a team that you can't have a superstar at every position. I thought he did a nice job, and he got better, as you mentioned, as the year wore on, and they were better when he was on the field than when he was off the field. So, but I use that as an example because that Rodgers is the guy they wanted, but were unable to get back for various reasons, and then you have to shift. So it's not, it goes in that order. You gotta answer your in-house questions before you know what you're doing out of house, so to speak. And if they lose Lane Johnson, well, they gotta figure out who's going to play right tackle for them, and you're never going to reach that standard. Same thing with AJ. Well, it's fine if you're going to trade him, but all those complications I brought up, you got to get somebody somewhere. Might be the draft. Like I said, wide receiver is a position you can usually get credible players even in round 2 or potentially round 3. Not going to be AJ Brown, but they could play or should be able to help you if you do it right. And then you look at the draft and, where are you? Well, they started 23rd. But if you factor in the potential compensatory picks and what's projected, they're going to have quite a few picks. So to repopulate that way as well. So, yeah, it all sort of, it's not an individual thing. It's sort of like, well, if you sign Jalen Phillips, you're good on the edge. If you don't sign Jalen Phillips,
Right.
that's a big issue. So, and I've often advocated they should flip the draft and free agency, but nobody's ever going to listen to me on that. Because I think it's backwards. I think, if you do it before free agency, you draft the players and then you have your holes, their evident holes, and then you go into free agency.
I agree with you. I think it'd make teams more aggressive in free agency.
Yeah, probably would. It'd probably help the veteran players because if you don't get what you need in the draft, you're going to be sort of panic stricken. And it also helps the draft process because you're not as focused on fixing a hole,
right,
versus that. So I think it would help the industry as a whole, but nobody's buying that. I've been pitching that for years. Nobody's buying it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good breakdown. That's the look at some of the key dates here in the offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles and the NFL. as a whole, obviously everybody here is focused on the Eagles. It's an important offseason, John. I think it is. At least you look at what happened this year, and you look at the window, John. Last offseason they came off a Super Bowl win, and a lot of things are being talked about. Where me included, where is this the era? Is this the opportunity to maybe try and be a dynasty, go and win multiple Super Bowls with the core that you have assembled? Felt like they had a good chance to do that. How close do you think for that window to be close? Like if the window is here last year, where do you view it after this year? Is it down here? Is it a little bit more closed? Can they open it way back up depending on what moves they make? Where do you see that window that everybody was so high on a year ago? Where do you see it now as we sit here February 4th of 2026?
Well, I think they have the potential to keep the window open, but as we sit here on February 4th, that's the problem. It's you don't know what the finished product is. It's going to be, significant turnover, as there always is in the NFL, 25 to 30% minimum. What does that 25 to 30% look like? Are you losing Lane Johnson? Are you losing A.J. Brown? Then I don't think they're going to be probably a significant Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I agree.
Is Lane going to play again? Is AJ going to, fall in love with Sean Mannion and what he can bring to the offense? Then I think they're going to be legitimate Super Bowl contender. If Sean Mannion's a natural and he just hits the ground running, you got a chance to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think you see, the teams that are in the Super Bowl now and where they came from, especially New England. I mean, this is a parity-driven sport, a parity-driven league. And I talk about it all the time, man. The difference between these teams is top 10. Who's got the best top 10 on a specific year? And then if you go from 11 to 53, man, you could trade the bottom ends of rosters and have the same teams pretty much. So if you make good decisions, if you make, and the Eagles have been on quite a run from a draft perspective. And if that continues, yeah, they could be a Super Bowl contender. But number one, you better get Lane Johnson back for another season healthy and try to fix things with AJ. That would be number one. And then I think you're in a position if things click, you can be a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I see it as well. It's going to be interesting. I think the moves they can make, John, it can either shut the window or you can crack it back open a little bit more. We will see if they're able to do that. Good stuff. John, good stuff. Everybody being here. Don't forget to hit that like button. Good opening segment here on Birds 365. I want to pivot a little bit here and start to look a little bit at the NFL draft. Before we do that, I want to take a look at the general manager who will be making a pick or making the picks in the NFL draft, who will be negotiating the deals or at least be the forefront of negotiating the deals in free agency. John, Howie Roseman, how do you think he's been the last year? Coming off the Super Bowl, everybody had him as the greatest GM, maybe to ever exist in the history of all pro sports. I don't know if that was a little bit far-fetched. I do think he's a great general manager. How about the last year? How much do you think Howie Roseman has to do with the Eagles coming up short in the last season?
Well, I think he's the best GM in the NFL. I thought that coming into last offseason. I thought that coming out of last offseason. I think that today, I think he's the best GM in the NFL. Now, John Snyder's going to get a bunch of love. Should come this week. And there's guys in the conversation. Les Snead obviously would be in the conversation, but very small list. And I think he's at the top of it. I don't think that changes. Look, he told you what they were doing last year. He was above board. I think everybody, well, he didn't sign anybody. He told you why he didn't sign anybody. So I think for those people, it's difficult to understand. Nobody had spent more cash over the past decade than the Philadelphia Eagles, and they had to sort of reset the copper, so to speak, for what's coming on the defensive side of the football. We talk about that draft success didn't materialize as much this season, this past season, not because Jahad Campbell was playing great. Just circumstance, and Jacoby came back and was healthy, and Vic trusted him. And I thought Drew Makuba was playing well as a rookie, 64th overall pick. I thought he was going in a very positive direction. So, I consider those two, the first two picks, even though you're picking really late, they moved up from 32 to 31 to get Jihad, but they were trying to move up to, I think it was 22, as high as 22 to get him. And then, as I said, last pick in the second round, you get Drew Makuba. I think that's pretty good. Now, after that, not much. But, I mean, look, we go through this every year. We went through it the year prior I always remember the 5th round pick year with Anaya Smith and Trevor Keegan and Trott.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys. You can't expect day 3 picks to just be immediate difference makers. It doesn't work that way. And so all the Ty Robinsons and Mac McWilliams and Smile Mundins, Drew Kendall, they had a bunch of picks. Kyle McCord, Miles Hinton, Cam Williams, Antoine Powell-Ryland. Kyle's gone, so but he's a 6th round pick. It's the 181st pick in the draft. Powell-Ryland's the 209th pick in the draft. I would have liked to have seen more from Ty Robinson. I think that's fair. I would have liked to have seen more from Mac McWilliams. I think that's fair. I thought Smile did a nice job in his role, and I think the offensive linemen are worthwhile swings, all 3 of them. So, yeah, I don't look at last year as a failure from Howie Roseman's perspective, understanding that what he was trying to accomplish, which – I think people are going to leave that out, that you might not like it, but you should like it when they're able to re-sign Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean down the road.
Yeah, it's fair. It's a good way to look at it. It's kind of how I see it too as well, John. I don't think Howie, I don't think he had a great year, but I think you nailed it where you talk about what the expectation was. And I just don't think the personnel was problem number 1 on this team this year. I know you and I have disagreed to some extent on that, where, maybe I'm overrating the players, but I really don't look at the way the team didn't reach expectations this year as a personnel issue. I really didn't. But I'll just run it back for everybody. John, tell me if I missed anybody. I think I got this pretty comprehensively. All right, so who left last year? Milton left, Sweat left, Slice left, Bradbury, that didn't matter. C.J. Gardner-Johnson left. Isaiah Rodgers left. Mekhi Becton left. Oren Burks left. And Kenny Pickett left. All right, that's who departed the team post-Super Bowl last year. Then who you brought in? Josh Uche. These are the Timu signings. I'll rattle them all off for you. Josh Uche, Azeez Ojulari, Patrick Johnson, Adoree Jackson, A.J. Dillon, Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson, Kendall Lamb and Matt Pryor, Avery Williams, and Kenyon Green. And then your draft, 1st round pick, Jahad Campbell, 2nd round pick, Andrew Makuba, 4th round pick, Ty Robinson, 5th round pick, Mac McWilliams, 5th round pick again, Smile Mundin, 6th round pick, Miles Hinton. And I think there was a couple more in there I'm leaving out on the round 7. And then the midseason moves that were made was Jalen Phillips, obviously the big move, Michael Carter, Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, who 2 of those guys walked out of here. So that's kind of your look at all the moves, John. It did feel like a lot of moves for not a lot of value or not a lot of production. but maybe that's what was necessary last year. I just wanted to take a look at kind of what Howie did last year, and if that's considered a down year for him too. We talk about the players a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't add in the context, yeah, I guess it would be considered a bad year, because if you're just pretending like, well, you're signing a bunch of one-year guys because you're trying to reset, and the one-year guys didn't hit. And, people talk themselves. Look, how many times did we hear in the offseason coming into the season, we got our big Harrison Bryant fan. We got, Aziz Ojulari is going to be a difference maker. Look, contracts tell you a lot. They don't tell you everything, but they tell you a lot. And if guys are signing for 1 year at the veteran minimum, or the most expensive player was Ojulari, who didn't work out at all. And I think he got $3 million, somewhere in that range, not a lot. I mean, as Vic said, you get what you pay for. You go to Nordstrom's, you get something nice.
Yeah, right.
You get Jalen Phillips.
Yep.
You go to the Walmart clearance aisle, maybe you find something every once in a while. I'm a Yankees fan. I found a nice Mickey Mantle print in the Walmart clearance aisle once. It's really nice.
There you go, John.
I spent like $5 on it. Every once in a while you get a hit, but vast majority you got a bunch of nothing.
Right.
And look, I don't want to I thought Josh Uche played very well early in the season, and then they shipped it off and kind of screwed him. But I mean, that's the life of the NFL player. Guys were coming back, and they traded for Jalen Phillips, and they convinced BG to come back, and he there's not a spot for him. That's what happens. AJ Dillon, a lot of people were hyped about him. Nothing. Harrison Bryant didn't even make it to the season, but did a decent job in Houston as a playoff team. Adoree', I said, played pretty well. Patrick Johnson, a good special teams player. Avery Williams did nothing. There was a lot of hype about him as the manufactured touch guy, the returner. Didn't even make the team. Conley Granson, okay, did a good job on special teams. Ojulari didn't play much. Kendall Lamb didn't make it to the season. Matt Pryor didn't do a great job as a backup when he had the opportunity, which was a little bit disappointing considering the year he was coming off of in Chicago. Obo, I don't know if you mentioned him, but he got hurt. But I mean, I would say temper your expectations this year if you get some 1 year guys. When everybody does, you get 1 year guys, and temper your expectations on those guys. That would be my moral of that story.
Well, I think part of the broken thought process, which I'm pretty sure you alerted us to at the time, was how good Zach Bond was. Remember?
Yeah.
So everybody's
he's the Mickey Mantle print in the Walmart.
Exactly right. He's the Mickey. You keep coming back, John. You keep going back to Walmart, and you walk in with this small sliver of optimism. Hey, maybe I'll get lucky again. But years have gone by, John, and you still haven't gotten lucky like you did that day with the Mickey Mantle print. But it's enough to keep you coming back, just in case you can find another diamond in the rough.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what you're shooting for. And they did that purposefully, though. So I think that part is missed. They wanted to reset, and, because paying guys cash up front is a lot of what has made this team successful. And they know they're going to have to do it with some big time talent. So that's where we are. And that's what happened. And, I get it from a fan perspective. They want to go hell or high water to win every year, but it's just not realistic.
Yeah, no, I didn't bring this up to rip Howie. I just wanted to look at the year and think, get a gauge. Like, how much do you think the personnel situation they were in, even if you think Howie, did what he could with him?
Well, personnel.
How much do you think it impacted, though, or was a part of the results of the season?
to me, the issue and where we differ on personnel is you had a bunch of guys with big reputations that didn't play up to those reputations.
Right. That's a bigger problem than acquisition.
Specifically on the offensive side of the ball. You know, if you can somehow replicate Saquon Barkley, I'm probably out in Northern California, you know, again, not, you know, you get the point for the Super Bowl, not that it was in Northern California last year. But, you know, if you can replicate that offensive line performance, I'm probably talking to you from San Francisco right now.
Yeah, right.
If you know, if AJ plays like AJ typically does, you know, it's just a bunch of guys. I talked about it. Everybody took it down to now different reasons, right? Offensive line, Lane wasn't healthy, didn't play the last 8 games. Obviously, didn't have the same season. Cam had the back surgery, struggled coming off it, especially early in the season. Not the same player. Landon, multiple injuries, not the same player. Jordan Mailata, I think, still played well, but he might have been, according to PFF, he was the best player in football in the 2024 season. He didn't live up to that standard. Again, not a drastic fall off. Tyler Steen was okay as a first-time starter. I don't think he was as good as Mekhi Becton, who, by the way, was terrible with the Chargers. So it's not like bringing him back would have been the right decision either, necessarily. Dallas Goedert, I realize people are going to look at, well, he had all those touchdowns. Yeah, he did, but he also had a big drop off from his typical level when it comes to the blocking game. And what's more important for this team than the running game? So I still argue that Dallas didn't play quite as well as an all-around player, and I think he would say the same thing. Devontae's the closest. He's probably more in the just plays like he always played. But if you force me, I'd say he wasn't quite as good as he typically is. So you're talking the whole offense and the quarterback, which did not play as well or efficiently. I think the first 7-8 games, I think he was playing better, and then he kind of tailed off from an efficiency standpoint. So that's tough to overcome, man, when everybody's going in a negative direction. And you can blame it all on Kevin Patullo if you want. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, who said it? I thought it was great because I've been talking about this a lot because Todd Monken was, I don't know if you saw him talking yesterday, got introduced as the
a little bit
Browns head coach. And there was a lot of Jim Schwartz talk because Jim is obviously unhappy out there and wanted the job and probably should have gave it to him, to be honest, because he's been through it all there with that crappy organization. So I get that he's unhappy. And they were asking Todd, and he started off and he was very smart. He said, well, I don't feel I'm in a position to talk about that right now. Something, and I'm paraphrasing. But then they kept pressing him, and then he kind of lost his cool a little bit from my perspective. And he was like, I have a lot of respect for Jim Schwartz. I would think he has a lot of respect for me. And then he went, and he said, when I played the Browns, I didn't scheme to chip Jim Schwartz. I schemed to chip Myles Garrett. What he's saying is, I'm worried about the fucking players, not the coaches. So I wish that would resonate with people. It will not. I get it. But Jim's not going out on the field. Myles Garrett is. And Jim's a great defensive coordinator. Love the guy. I always say nobody's taught me more about defensive football than Jim Schwartz. Love the guy. Players, man. Players.
It's true, John. It's very true. No doubt about it. Good stuff there, John. Appreciate that little rundown right there. It's good to see where this team is. There's a lot on the table here this offseason, John. At least it feels like there is, and I do wonder which way they're going to go here or how aggressive they will be. But there is a lot out there. So players first. John, what's your early? And it's way too early to say this, but you don't think the Eagles are going to have a big drop off, do you? I mean, the only reason I say that this early is because AJ, Lane.
Well, I think if you lose those guys, there's the potential for that. But I don't expect. I think Lane is going to play. I still think that. I don't think he wants to end on that note, missing the final 8 games. AJ is more, as I said, I don't, 52-48. I don't think he'll be here, but I think the Eagles will try to talk him into running it back for one more season at least. So I'm more optimistic than not they'll have them both. But if you lose 2 players of that level, that would be very difficult. And if you lose Jalen Phillips, that would be very difficult to replace. You have these issues with the coaching staff, a little bit different inexperience. Again, after talking about all anybody talked about was the inexperience, and now everybody's good with it. Even less experience. So you could see that going in a negative direction. You could see all the stuff around Vic potentially retiring. The same thing's going to happen. Everybody knows that this might be his last year. So you could see the path to having a shit show of a season. It's not going to be hard. I mentioned this yesterday for Jimmy Kempski to do his dumpster fire series for the Eagles. Because, and look, not everything is going to go bad. Not everything's going to go right. But so I think they're going to be fine. I don't think they're going to have a terrible season because, I think Lane's going to come back, and I don't know about AJ, but I think they'll get Jalen Phillips back, especially if Spot Rack's right. I mean, they're getting a bargain. So they'll be able to get that done. And they have, a bunch of projected draft picks. And they've done a pretty good job, I think. Boy, and I'm looking at Wikipedia, so I don't know if this is right, but I know they start at 23, and then they have 54, 68, and 98 potentially, which is the compensatory selection. So in theory, you're probably going to get 4 picks in the top 100. And, you can find some valuable players in the top 100 if you do your job correctly.
We'll see. We'll see what they end up doing there. I do think offensive tackles on the menu, obviously, as everybody thinks. I think offensive tackle should be on the menu regardless of what Lane Johnson does now.
Oh, yeah. Well, it has been for the past 2 years. They've been trying to get that done for years, man. It just hasn't worked out. You have to like the player, and he has to be there. And when you're picking as late as the Eagles have been picking,
Trying's not going to get a cut anymore, though. Like they got to get an offensive lineman.
Well, you're at the mercy of other teams. Like they wanted Fautano a couple of years ago, and Pittsburgh drafted him 2 spots before him. Maybe they were trying to go up to get him, and maybe Pittsburgh didn't want to go to. They wanted the player. I get just go up and get him, and they went up and got Jahad Campbell. Remember, they were trying to go up to 22 to get Jahad Campbell. So if somebody else was in there and wanted the player, you're screwed. But he ended up lasting all the way to 31. So, if it's Caden Proctor, a lot of Caden Proctor hype so early in the process. But if he's the guy, you might have to go up to get him if you want to secure it. And he's somebody who could project to start out inside and move outside when you need to replace Lane Johnson, whenever it is. So, but yeah, I mean, the draft is, unless you got the number one pick, nothing's guaranteed. And you can take whoever you want at number one.
We'll see. How aggressive do you think Howie will be this summer?
Well, go back. Is AJ does AJ amenable playing here? Is Lane going to play? I think that affects his aggression greatly. If they can make up with AJ, they're not going to have all these cap ramifications, and they have more room to do stuff. So the in-house stuff will affect the out-house stuff, the out-of-house stuff. So if they get Lane, if they get AJ, if they get Lane, he's not going to retire. If they get AJ back in the fold, convince him to play. If they re-sign Jalen Phillips, especially at the kind of deals Spot Rack is talking about, then I think they have the room to go out, not to be, totally aggressive, but to get one or two potential difference-making players.
Going to be interesting to see what they end up doing. Appreciate everybody being here on the Open. We got Brandon Lee Gout coming up here in about 20 minutes on the show. Looking forward to talking to BLG. Let's go to Brian Garner, our super chat today. I don't know, my chat's not working, everybody, so sorry if I can't read some of your other comments. I did get a super chat that came through. Garner says, when Mannion was hired, I glanced at the TV and didn't see his name just under the picture. First thought was, why did the Eagles hire Ross Tucker? Haha.
Does Sean look like Ross Tucker? I don't know. I know Ross pretty well. I don't see that. I don't see that. Yeah, but I guess everybody sees things different. I don't see a big. He doesn't look like Ross's brother to me.
I'm looking forward to hearing Ross gas up the Eagles in the preseason games already. And
he'll gas them up.
Oh, he will. There's no doubt about it. I can't blame him.
Well, that's part of his gig. That's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's what he's paid to do, John.
Now, he does a lot of national stuff, obviously, CBS, Westwood, and he's more, more objective, I would say, than when he's doing the Eagles in-house preseason stuff.
John, we just talked about some of the offseason moves that'll be made. We even mentioned Lane Johnson, obviously, as he's one of the biggest stories of the offseason. My next question for you in terms of acquisition or moves to make this year would be, last year was an awful year for two key guys that were paid big money and identified as a core part of your team, in Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens. Should the Eagles start, I'm not going to say you're getting their replacements, but do you maybe need to draft backup O-linemen? Do you need to put a bigger priority on having guys in the chamber that can fill in for those guys if you don't feel as good about them, long term? I feel like we've had such great offensive linemen here. Like, we even thought about having a backup tackle in case Jordan Mailata or Lane Johnson goes down. Really, all that much? Now we got to start. It feels like we got to start thinking about that. How much, do you think Howie will pay attention to the backup offensive linemen after the year you saw from Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson?
Yeah, well, I thought they showed significant. I mean, I realize that people want immediate gratification. I realize that, but they drafted 3 guys on day 3 on the offensive line: Drew Kendall, Miles Hinton, Cam Williams. I still think Drew Kendall can be a starting center in this league. But it's going to take some time. One thing about offensive linemen, number one, and this probably Cam Williams specifically, who has admitted it, who I thought it was going to be bad when he played week 18. And he was actually pretty good. I was pretty impressed. But one thing about young offensive linemen, when they get to the NFL, they got to hit the weight room. In an NFL strength program, old man strength, as they call it in this league, they got to get stronger. And that's the case with all 3 of those guys. But I think all three of those guys still have upside and still could potentially be meaningful to the Eagles down the road. Whether it, when we talk about the potential of Cameron Williams, a lot of people thought that's a kid, if he stayed at Texas for one more year, could have been a first or second round pick. And he came out early. Sometimes guys have family issues. They want to take care of their family. They want to do some things, even though NIL's changed and maybe they could stay. So everything's shifting so much on the college landscape. But, Cameron came out and, he might be the answer. So I think everybody wants it. And even Holland Pierce, who's an undrafted kid who's massive and again needs to get in the weight room so his strength matches his body size. They got 4 pretty nice developmental prospects, which is another reason I don't think they should move on from Jeff Stoutland, by the way. But I think people forget that and they just dismiss them because they didn't see them right away. You're muted.
Yeah, my bad. I don't think people forget it. I just don't think people look at him as a premium, player. I mean, how many 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, actually pan out?
Well, that's why you carpet bomb it.
Right, you take 5 of
them. And they carpet bombed it. And so the point is, look, if they can get a Caden Proctor in round 1, I think, yeah, that's a difference maker potentially. And then it Blaine Landon was a second round pick who would have been a first round pick if it weren't for the injury history. You got a great couple of years, and here are the injuries. This is one of the reasons he wasn't a first round pick. He would have been a no brainer as a first round pick if it wasn't for the injuries. Cam, a second round pick, developed. Now you have some injury issues. So, yeah, I mean, and even Tyler Steen was a third round pick, so he's considered a premium pick in the NFL's eyes. So they're always going to invest in the offensive line. You don't have to worry about that. But I do think people don't realize how much they invested last year when it came to developmental prospects. And it might take a little longer. But I think all 3 of those guys have significant upside. And the Eagles think Holland Pierce has significant upside. I'm not going to go that far, but Cameron Williams specifically intrigues me because he legitimately, I guarantee you, we would have been talking about this guy's a potential first round pick this year if he stayed at Texas. But he's got to get stronger. And Drew Kendall, I think he could be a starting player in this league. Miles Hinton.
You're expecting these guys to be a little bit better this year, at least a little bit further along where the
Eagles
them as viable backups. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why they did it. But I'd also, the one guy, if you look at the free agents on the offensive side of the ball, who legitimately could be brought back. And that, so I don't think, and I could be wrong, and maybe the market isn't there for him, but I don't think it's legitimate that Dallas Goedert is going to be back. So I do that as explanation. Of all the offensive free agents they have, the one guy I want to bring back is Brett Toad, because I think he did a freaking great job as a backup. A great job. And nobody believed in him, and I didn't believe in him from watching him a bunch of off, target snaps over the years in practice. But, man, he got his opportunity, and he freaking balled out, man. That's exactly what you want, a veteran backup who can play all 3 interior offensive line positions and not only be serviceable, you could argue at times that he was better than Cam Jurgens or Landon Dickerson because of the injuries. But
yeah, right. No, but the point's still well taken. Yep.
So I'd bring him back, and you aren't going to have to pay him a ton. I think they're fine when it comes to depth on the offensive line. The question is, can the starters get back to their Pro Bowl / All Pro levels, which is, the big difference maker, obviously. It's nice to have good backups. It's nice to have good developmental options, but it's better to have the All Pros out there on every play.
No doubt about it. We will see what they end up doing here, John. So it's going to be interesting. So how many offensive linemen do you expect them to take just to look for just a potential premium pick on Lane Johnson? And then you don't think they'll need to carpet bomb them late because of what they've done?
I don't expect 3 on day 3 again, because I do think they like the guys they got. But, with Howie, if there's an offensive lineman they really like to have on day 3, before day 3, they have what they call a passion meeting where everybody gets to lobby for one particular player that's still on the board that they think could be a really good player. They actually showed edited, obviously, clips of that meeting on their unscripted show last year. So it's where all the scouts and everybody involved gets together and they say, all right, pound the table for this guy. They each pound the table for one guy. And if they like a guy in the 5th, 6th round, they'll take an offensive lineman more than any other position. So, but I don't expect them to carpet bomb it like they did last year.
Going to be interesting to see what they end up doing. Garner, appreciate the super chat. Good stuff there. As always, everybody, we're going to have Brandon Lee Gout coming up in a little bit. Curious to hear BLG's take on the hirings and everything. We didn't hear BLG. We heard him last Wednesday, so we didn't get a chance to hear from him.
Yeah, Sean Mannion era started on Thursday.
Thursday late, right? Thursday night?
Yeah.
Remember we did our first show at like 6 o'clock on a Thursday. I think the news broke around 5 or 5:15-ish, whatever it was. And then we did our night show, and off and running we were. And then you got the Friday news of Josh Grizzard. So now the staff has come more together since we last talked to BLG. I'll be curious to hear what BLG has to say about the
big news. The Eagles lost a free agent.
Who?
Terrace Marshall signed with the Miami Dolphins. He's a futures guy. So
big news there.
Terrace was here. Terrace was here for most of training camp and spent a lot of the season on the practice squad. So he's allowed to sign now. But obviously unrestricted free agents aren't allowed to sign until March 11th. But Terrace Marshall gets a contract with the Dolphins, so good for him.
Good stuff for Terrace Marshall. Appreciate Johnny Mack. Appreciate everybody being here this morning, as always, as we move into the offseason. John, where do you think the Eagles will be the most aggressive this offseason?
Well, that is wholly dependent on what happens. I know you're going to get bored, but I mean, obviously, if they lose Lane Johnson, they're going to be really aggressive. If they lose A.J. Brown, they're going to be really aggressive at wide receiver. If they lose Jalen Phillips, they got to be really aggressive at edge. So that is wholly dependent on if they can get their in-house stuff done before free agency and the draft. And I think I certainly Lane will alert them if he's going to be part of it. So that'll be they'll have a concrete answer there. The AJ stuff obviously is more complicated. And Jalen Phillips, kind of up to him. I said those. If I'm Jalen Phillips, I'm testing the market, man. I'm testing the market because
I've been surprised by the projections on him. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to be right, but I've been surprised by him.
He is 26 years old, and he is going into a market where the best edge rusher is Trey Hendrickson, which, look, he's a great player. He's 32. He's 32.
And overpaid.
Not that there's not. Well, he's going to be overpaid.
I don't think Trey Hendrickson's all that great.
Not that there aren't dumb teams out there, but are you really going to spend $25 million on a 32-year-old guy? I think somebody will, but I don't think that's good to say. And you look at the other guys; these are guys scheduled to be free agents. Khalil Mack, obviously, he's going to the Hall of Fame. He's 35 years old. Hassan Reddick, we know. He's 32, Hassan now. Joey Bosa's 31. Leonard Floyd's 34. Those are your top edge rushers. And then you get to the, Malcolm Kuntz, who's 28. So that's pretty good. Uchor Gross Mattis is 28. And then you got Jalen Phillips, who's going to be 27. He's not even 27 yet. You think somebody's not going to overpay that guy?
Well, ACL and Achilles in the last 2 years, John.
Well, he looked pretty good.
Look good to me. I'm with you. I'm just saying. I think people do get worried about that.
Well, I'm sure that will limit it somewhat, but when those are your and guys can trade for Max Crosby, and who knows what Myles Garrett will wake up one day and Jim Schwartz isn't there and he'll want to leave again, and you can go the trade market, things like that, but that is a premium position in the NFL where there's like one guy who's entering the prime of his career who could turn into a Brandon Brooks. That's what the Eagles used to do. Find that guy coming off his rookie contract who maybe hasn't quite broken out. That's the sweet spot of free agency. Jalen Phillips is in the sweet spot of free agency, and he's getting to free agency.
And so the Eagles can pay him what?
Like I said, I'm if I'm Jalen Phillips, I am Milton Williams in it. All right, Spot Rack. You said 17 million a year. I think somebody's giving him over 20. I'd bet on myself if I'm Jalen Phillips. I know a lot of Eagles fans will say, well, nobody's listening to me, number one. Nobody at the Eagles is listening to me. So my advice isn't taken by Jalen Phillips. So calm down from that. If I were the player, I'd bet on myself, and I'd say I'd see what's out there. It's what Isaiah Rodgers did. It's what Milton Williams did. Now, different levels, obviously, but if I'm Jalen Phillips, I'm going to force the Eagles to pay me my market worth.
And your walkaway number would be what?
23, probably.
A little north of where but I don't know. I'm starting to believe the predictions. They don't have a great track record, so that I don't think they do. At least I don't think it's a good thing to rely on. But I do think about those injuries, and I don't know. I mean, is somebody going to? Josh Sweat got what? 18 mil.
Well, Josh Sweat, and then again, this is another thing where I think even people, and I'm not, because like I always bring up Brad because Brad's great at it. He got 18 million. Yes. He's older, significant injury history, significant. Josh Sweat doesn't like to talk about it
too.
Not lose your leg significant.
Yeah, but isn't that viewed as more old? I mean, that was Josh Sweat from his really early days. Like
it was, but
more recent history did not indicate that he's cooked. I mean, I get it. The shelf life might be shorter on that specific player, but.
Look, Josh got sick of talking about it so much. First of all, he always had to wear the brace, still wears the brace, to my knowledge. I haven't paid attention, and I don't know why he dropped it at this point.
Yeah, he did. He had a good year, though.
He's had a great year here for many years. I mean, the Eagles had him on a freaking strict snap count because they were worried about it. I mean, it was not a run-of-the-mill ACL. It was not a run-of-the-mill. a Teddy Bridgewater type injury. Where you have to get to the hospital quickly, or there's some bad stuff that's going to happen.
Yeah, right.
So, it has followed him around, and he hates talking about it, and I get it from that perspective. He's had a great career, but the only reason I bring that up is because he does have, and that's how teams think. He does have a significant injury history. Everybody knows about it, and he made $18 million with a $279 million cap number, not a $306 million cap number. So when the cap goes up, rising tides lift all boats. So, you can argue who the better player is. I think Jalen's slightly better, but you can certainly argue in Josh's direction from that standpoint. But he's younger. Phillips is younger. I would argue the injury history, even though it's significant, is a little bit less than Josh's from a concern standpoint.
Well, Josh did have the crazy, pre-pros.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. That was
and again, the cap is going to be $27 million higher than it was the year prior.
That is big, man. That is big. That's a big number, John.
So
what are we up to? 303 to 307, you said it was? Somewhere in that range?
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Yeah. It's not official yet, but that's the range they gave them what it's going to be. So yeah. So people tend to forget that thing changes and goes up. And that'll affect. But and then the biggest point, which I didn't bring, is again the scarcity of players at a premium position that are not post 30, because all the good edge rushers set to hit free agency are all over 30. The only one who isn't is Jalen Phillips, literally. And I don't know how well Malcolm Kuntz played last year. I'd have to look at it, but I haven't kept up on my Malcolm Kuntz news, so I apologize for that. But he's young too, and he already, got he had a significant salary before. I'll look him up real quick. But there are not a lot of guys. There are not a lot of guys out there who, and obviously everybody wants and needs pass rushers. If I'm Jalen Phillips' agent, I'm going the Isaiah Rodgers route and saying, all right, we'll get back to you, but if somebody gives us more, that's where I would go.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. We got BLG coming up, but maybe he'll be here in a minute or so. So we'll talk to him. John, real quick, I think we mentioned this, but it all runs together a little bit. I know what you mean more now as the days go by, what you mean by that phrase. Did we talk about the Giants getting Matt Nagy? I think that broke yesterday, or did that break the day before?
No, we didn't talk about it. I think you mentioned it, but
it happened during our show, right? Yesterday?
Yeah. I think he's a good coach. I don't know why he's portrayed the way he is, but perception often overtakes reality. I thought that's the guy the Eagles should have hired. Because look, nothing against Sean Mannion. I don't know how you go into a season with somebody with no experience after what you went through last season, when all anyone complained about was the guy had no experience. And now you bring in a guy with less experience. Doesn't compute for me. Doesn't mean it can't work. But I know Matt's not going to be overwhelmed. Now people will say, well, Sean's got a bigger upside. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. How do you know?
Well, it feels like the Giants are building that team to play the Eagles, doesn't it? I mean, Matt Nagy and Vic Fangio were coaches together in 2018 with the Bears. Nagy was first year as a head coach. Vic Fangio was his defensive coordinator that year. He had a really good year. And then they got Denard Wilson as their DC, former Eagle coach. I'm like, John Harbaugh's got his sights set on the NFC East first, as he should. And they're trying to dethrone the Eagles. That's the way to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, what John, I mean, I think with John, it's just a guy, he's been around for so long. He's got the big Rolodex, so to speak, but he knows everybody, been in the industry for so long. He knows every coach. He worked with Denard Wilson before. He worked with, as you mentioned, he worked with Vic before. He's worked with everybody at some point because so many people go through Baltimore, but um, which is a well-regarded organization as well. Um, and he wanted Todd Monken, so it's not his first choice, but Todd got a head coaching job, and that's how it works. And I think they could have done a lot worse than Matt Nagy. And I know a lot of, for whatever reason, I don't get it. He was pretty good in Chicago, considering what he had. Now he had Vic's good defense. That's part of it. I don't see anybody else do much with Mitchell Trubisky.
Me neither.
And that one year when he lost the double doink game, which I thought was his biggest mistake because he had a chance to manipulate that and get Minnesota in that game, and they would have boat raced that team because they couldn't stop the run. And then that's what the Bears did well. And he made the mistake, and he said, I don't care, and I'm going to go win week 18. And that was a mistake because he could have avoided the Eagles, who were coming off a Super Bowl. And it was still a close game. They should have won it. The kick would have been good, but it was who was it? It was Trayvon Hester. I always get Trayvon Hester mixed up with Bruce Hector. Trayvon Hester got his fingertip on the football, and the rest is history. But yeah, if you look at Chicago before Matt Nagy got there and after, it's a pretty good coach in Chicago. And he's learned for many, many years under Andy Reid, which I never think is a bad thing as well.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. We got BLG in the green room. Let's get him up right now. Brandon Lee Gout joining us here on Birds 365. You can read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. Follow him on X at Brandon Gouton. BLG, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing on this Wednesday morning, the first Wednesday together of the Sean Mannion era, my friend?
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked to you. It happened on Thursday, so we talked to you on Wednesday. So I don't want to muddy it up for you. What are your thoughts on the Sean Mannion hire? Interesting, to say the least.
It is interesting because when we're talking about analyzing it, like what are we really going on here? there isn't much.
Yeah, I know.
Standpoint. It's 2 years of coaching. Period. Like that's crazy. The fact that he was an assistant in 2024, which is a pretty like nebulous title as well, and then he's a quarterbacks coach in 2025, and that's it. Like that's pretty crazy. I know he played in the league, and he's been around a lot of the NFL's what's regarded to be their top offensive minds at various points in his career, and with them being in different positions. So I think that's nice to be exposed to all of that. But I mean, the reality is it's just such a big unknown that we're not really going off a lot here.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Good.
Sorry, Zander. It struck me, and I don't know if it struck you. The Eagles were really branding this as a Nick Sirianni hire. I mean, from start to finish. Did you get that? Because that's, and whether it was or whether it wasn't, from a negative standpoint, if you want to go negative, that to me means they're saying, hey, if things go wrong, blame this guy. Or am I being too harsh with that?
No, I think that's fair. Part of what I mean, it's just hard to believe from a standpoint. It's hard to believe that, Howie and Jeffrey Lurie are not involved at all. Or like,
well, yeah, they have to sign off. I mean, at the bare minimum, right?
Well, and also making the connection, or kind of like being like, hey, Nick, talk to this guy. Not necessarily, hey, you have to hire this guy, but like, hey, have this guy on your radar. And it's worth noting that Sean Mannion, one of the coaches he did overlap with at one point is Jed Fish, who obviously was Howie Roseman's former college roommate. So I'm sure that connection, could have been relevant to this whole thing at some level. So yeah, I think ultimately, like it's hard. It's hard when you look at the other coaches they've had on their staff in the past and who very much have not been Nick Sirianni hires, and to say like, oh yeah, he did all of the legwork on this one. without the organization being involved at all.
But that to me, the troubling part of that, and I agree from that standpoint, is that to me they're highlighting that this is, in other words, they're setting him up to blame, and which I get kind of a 2013 Chip Kelly feel, not 2013, 2016, his last season, 2015.
15.
Yeah, 2015, where you remember that convoluted Jeffrey Lurie explanation when he moved Howie off of personnel. And it was basically, and I'm paraphrasing, it was basically, well, I had to see what I have in Chip Kelly, and which I always thought was probably his worst decision as an owner, results wise, probably borne out. But I get that same feeling here. It's like, are they saying we got to let Nick? We got to give Nick this power to see what we have. I fear there might be a little of that in this. Is that too conspiratorial?
I don't think it's like insanely off base. I think it's kind of like splitting the difference a bit because, if they really wanted to go all in on that concept, and there was some talk of this last week before they ultimately hired Sean Mannion, is it's like, hey, let's let Nick Sirianni call the plays. He can do that too.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're trying to, see like, and I actually don't dislike that approach from a standpoint of like, okay, Nick, like let's see the answers that you have. Like you kind of put the Eagles in this mess a little bit in terms of like you wanted Kevin Patullo, that was your guy. It didn't work out. All right, now let's see you kind of get out of it. I think it's splitting the difference a bit because they could have brought in, well, they could have had Nick call plays, or they could have brought, Jim Bob Cooter in here, or someone with ties to Nick Sirianni, and they didn't do that with either Mannion or Josh Grizzard. So I think that's notable. So I don't think they're fully doing that, but look, I mean, a lot of the onus should be on Nick still because in Grizzard you have a guy with 1 year of play calling experience, and Mannion very little experience at all. Like Nick still has to. He might not be dictating the offense, but ultimately as the head coach, like, he's responsible for what this offense looks like. And also, I just want to throw in here, a lot of the issues the Eagles had on offense last year weren't just the play calls themselves. Obviously it was the design as well, I would say, but even more than that, it was like the direction that Nick Sirianni was kind of taking the offense in terms of being too conservative in these games, in the approach that he's dictating, which he's still going to be dictating as the head coach, because that's what the head coach does. He's not necessarily saying run this play call here, but he's saying, hey, like we want to play it safe here, or hey, we're going to be more aggressive here. So that's still a big part of the equation here.
How hot do you think Nick Sirianni's seat is coming into this year with what happened last year and then these hires and the way it's been framed up? How hot is the seat, BLG?
It's a very funny question. It's a very fair question, but it's very funny just from the standpoint of they're still technically the reigning Super Bowl champions for a couple more days. But it's valid because, I don't think this season, as I've talked about before, with how bad they were in offense last year, there was a precedent for Nick Sirianni to be fired after this past season. Now, obviously, he wasn't. They gave him the grace, and I think that's reasonable. But just from a standpoint of, like, that's one of their worst offensive seasons since 2000. And the other two ahead of them, the coaches got fired. So I don't think if they're coming in with another season here and the offense is similarly dysfunctional and bad again, that you give him a third year of that. Like, I think the precedent is that there's going to be heads will roll at that point.
Is it, and Nick will always say, BLG, and I'm sure you've heard him say it a million times, it's never one thing. Everybody's got their fingerprints on them. I'm starting to think it is one thing on offense, and that thing is, you mentioned it, the conservatism, whether they call it risk averse. If they just get off that a little bit, I think this whole thing might be fixed. Now, the players have to play better. They have to execute. Landon's got to be healthy. Lane's got to be back. All this stuff. You have to have the same players. Are they just better if they're less conservative?
I think it helps. Yeah, I think you're pointing and you're getting better. But like part of that, the problem with that too, is I think part of my frustration with that is it kind of goes against what we all talk about in terms of just the talent on this roster. And it's like you're playing so conservative when you have all these guys where you should feel confident in them, or at least like if you're gonna fail, go fail knowing that you tried to like be more aggressive and you believed in these players that you have, as opposed to being just so scared, like so
Right.
scared something's gonna go wrong. Like trust them. Like, do they have that same kind of ability moving forward with the offense taking a step back? I think talent wise, which it might. I don't know to the same degree, but ultimately, yeah. I mean, I think they could improve still. It's just because it's like simple stuff. It's like the end of these end of half scenarios where it's just like all Nick's thinking about is what could go wrong, what could go wrong, instead of what could go right. And
Yeah.
I think that does cost them. That does burn them in some of these games, and it ends up being the difference. And when you're having the head coach be like the CEO head coach, and he's not in charge of the offense, like I don't want just like solid game management. I want him to ace. He has to ace that. If that's one of the things he's doing, bringing to the table, he has to be really good at that. And I don't think he was good at that last year.
Bill J, what do you think the hire of Sean Mannion means for Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I mean it's a big year for Jalen too, in terms of like I don't think Jeffrey Lurie is giving him like an unlimited runway here. Obviously he's the Super Bowl MVP, and I think Jeffrey Lurie likes Jalen Hurts a lot, but he has to produce. He has to be better than he was last year. And I'm interested to see if Sean Mannion can maybe push Jalen Hurts a little bit more out of his comfort zone. I kind of have to see that to believe that. And I think that's another thing that I question with the Sean Mannion hire. While I like the swing of the upside, I think it's a little like much for me to expect this first time play caller who has barely any coaching experience to kind of be like telling Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni what's up. And them like being like, oh yeah, deferring to him. So that's a dynamic I'm interested to see.
Yeah, to further that, I mean, it's so difficult as you point out Sean's history, and everybody's spoken glowingly about him. Um, from Sean McVay to Kevin O'Connell to all these names to Kubiak. Um, I get the Kubiaks mixed up all the time, um, but I think it's Clint who he worked with. Um, Everybody taught Matt LaFleur, obviously. Tom Clements, who was a legendary quarterbacks coach and was the quarterbacks coach there before, speaks very highly of him. Everybody speaks highly of him. But just to that nature of, like, think about it if you're Jeff Stoutland, and we all presume that Jeff Stoutland is coming back now. Maybe he's going to be the run game coordinator. Maybe he isn't. Uh, but he should be the offensive line coach. Jeff is 63 years old. He might be a Hall of Famer now that, he's already gotten the assistant coach legacy award if they start letting them into the Hall of Fame. Um, and even the Jason Michaels of the world and the Jamal Singletons of the world, how does that dynamic work when you're like, boy, if there's, how you think about it, BLG, you've been doing this for so long and you're like, if things start to go wrong and they're like, what, and you is that a bad dynamic? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, yeah, I'm interested to see what this offensive staff looks like because another thing that goes with this inexperience, it's not that inexperience itself is bad. It doesn't mean he can't succeed, but there's just a lot of question marks. And one of them is just, yeah, what the assistant coaching staff looks like. Because you figure the Eagles, the way they typically do it, they want to keep certain guys. And that's like, like their picks. Obviously, Sean Mannion isn't like coming in here and getting to decide all of that. But apparently, as Mike Garafolo noted, that like Sean Mannion is talking to Nick Sirianni, and they want to bring in some guys, some of like Sean Mannion's guys, just like when they hired Kellen Moore. They brought on Nussmeier and some lower level assistants as well, from who had previously been with the Cowboys, because that's part of the equation, is having like those assistants to help kind of install and help this scheme move along. So I'm interested to see what that looks like, and does that create different factions? And then you have someone like Josh Guzard who gets brought in through all this, and he's not obviously like a Manian guy necessarily, or a Nick guy necessarily, because he has no ties to either previously, which could be a good thing in terms of new ideas. But all this to say, like, I think it's easy to always assume that like everyone's pulling in the same direction. And obviously that's the goal, and that's part of the challenge for Nick and the organization. that's not always the case, in part because of where people are brought in and their personality types and the experience or lack thereof. So it's going to be interesting for me to see how this coaching staff, what it ultimately ends up looking like with who they hire.
The big name, it's already been brought up a lot this offseason, is A.J. Brown. You were talking about the two new offensive coaches. That's an important guy to get back if you're Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard. I don't know if they will. What do you think the Eagles are thinking on A.J. Brown, and are you expecting him to be moved this offseason, BLJ?
Yeah, I think we talk about it every week, and we're going to keep talking about it every
Yeah,
week
every
until
week.
something happens, because it's the biggest or one of the biggest questions hanging over this team. And I'm going to keep repeating what I've been saying. I just don't get the sense that AJ wants to be here. I think it's naive to think that like an offensive coordinator change is going to convince him. Like, I don't think that was the issue of his discontent last season. So until I see reason to believe otherwise that he is coming back, like I just think he's gone. I think it's run its course. And I think both sides are going to end up feeling like it's just best to move on, and that benefits both sides at this point.
A little bit of breaking news. The New York Football Jets have hired Frank Reich to be their offensive coordinator. I bring up Frank to bring up this, and just to wrap up the coaching staff, because I do want to talk about Grizzard a little bit. I thought that was a smart move from the perspective of getting someone in who has some play calling experience, not a ton. And it didn't go great, but he had a lot of injuries. Mike Evans was gone for a long portion of the year. Bucky Irving was gone for a long portion of the year. So there were some excuses for Josh. But I think if you bring somebody in like Frank Reich to be like a senior offensive coach, and you have the Sean Desai, Matt Patricia effect, where it's like, oh, this guy's here if this guy falls on his face, and that's exactly what happened with Matt Patricia. I think that's what would have happened with Sean Mannion if you bring in somebody like Frank Reich. I think the Grizzard thing I really did like. It was more layered. It was like you have the insurance policy, but it's not so obvious to everybody that he's there as an insurance policy. Do you see it like that?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And I also like buying low on him. Like you said, I think he kind of got a little bit of a raw deal there. First year on the job, they have a lot of injuries. You look at what that Bucks OC position was for his predecessors.
Yeah.
Dave Canales, Liam Cohen, it's really a springboard into some head coaching opportunities there. Also, an interesting background in terms of some of the coaches Grizzard has worked with as well, including, Mike McDaniel, who the Eagles seemingly probably wanted if they had their druthers when it comes to the offensive coordinator search. Has the Yale background, obviously. So just, seems like another smart mind to bring in here, the year of play calling experience. Good to have someone, I think, on staff with some extra, experience there. I thought that was a good addition as well.
Bill G, real quick on Mannion too. I was thinking about this earlier in the week. How good or bad is the setup for him? Like, first year play caller, first year coordinator, an owner that's proven he doesn't have patience, and if you don't, live up to it, you're gone. Head coach who nobody really knows, like, how much is he a part of it? How much say does he have? Are you running your own offense? Are you not? A quarterback that I can't tell if he's done running, if it was a Patullo Nick thing, or if he's going to keep running. Like, it feels like it's kind of a losing situation here for Sean Mannion if anything doesn't pan out to be perfect. How do you view the setup for him as a coach?
Yeah, it's a challenge. And I think, to me, the biggest question is, like, we're spending all this time, and understandably so, because there's not a lot going on at this time of year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Otherwise, 17 days or whatever it was, focused on this offensive coordinator search. They get the guy. That's great. That's well and good. Sean Mannion's going to be a factor in this team's success. But they have so many questions still that need answering, including the AJ thing, including Lane Johnson. Can Cam Jurgens and or Landon Dickerson get back to anything what they were? Or are they kind of just like done at this point? Or at least is one of them done? And if that's the case, what do you do about that? John Dotson, who obviously they're not going to miss, he's going to be a free agent. You're going to need to add a third receiver in here as well. Dallas Goedert's going to be a free agent. Like, there's so many moving pieces to me on offense that you need to figure out that, like, all of that has to be sorted through. And that's obviously not even going to be so much in Sean Mannion's purview as much as that's Howie Roseman and him having to solve all that. And so therefore, like, my mind, like, Sean Mannion can do everything right potentially, and it might not matter if Howie doesn't get his part right. So I think it's a big offseason to be able to set this to set Sean Mannion up for success, and I think it's really like on Howie to do the heavy lifting in that regard to help him out.
I'm always, and I think rightfully so, anybody who has covered this team or been around this team, I'm always hyper focused on the offensive line because that's what they believe in, first and foremost, BLG. And you mentioned two guys, injury concerns. Lane, we don't know if he's coming back. I think he'll come back. I don't know where you are with that, but I don't think he wants to end it not playing the last 8 games in this last season. So I think he'll be back. But one of the things I think everybody's excited about is that shift in philosophy. And I think mainly it's about the passing game and envisioning that. But if you think about what they were sniffing around and Mike McDaniel, as you mentioned, and Josh Broussard, you go all the way back to the Shanahan scheme, the rushing scheme, and all the talk about Jeff Stoutland not being as involved as the run game coordinator. Boy, man, I'm looking at the talent they have, and if Landon Dickerson is going to be back and is going to play at a high level again and is capable physically, is he the type of guy you want to run a bunch of wide zone with? Is he the type of guy? He's like an ultimate power guy. Same thing. Now, Jordan Mailata is very athletic for his size. Same thing. Power guy. Pin and pull. Inside zone. Same thing with Lane. Very athletic, but still powerful strength. And that was the Eagles' running game. More so, I don't think Saquon Barkley is that kind of patient runner that's going to go horizontal and then cut it back vertically, which is what that was. I think he's get the double team, get the combo block to the second level, and bang, he hits a home run. Is the talent they have a fit for where everybody seems, including the Eagles, by the people they're interviewing? Yeah, they wanted to interview Mike McDaniel. They interviewed his offensive coordinator, Frank Smith. Josh Broussard history, as you mentioned. It seems like they want to go that way. Does that make sense with the players they have?
And that's part of the challenge, right? Is making it work with what you have, and maybe needing to not just stick with what you've done, but also needing to adjust with what you have here. That's the balancing act. I feel like that goes into all of this. I feel like they should have the talent. The Dickerson thing and the Juergens thing, those are so tough from a standpoint of, let's just say, like, when you had James Bradberry by the end of 2023, like, you knew he was not going to be the answer. Like, he was just done. Like,
Yeah.
So, but it's not ideal, but it's like, okay, this is not the solution, so now we need to look elsewhere. With those guys, it's like, it's not that clear cut. It's like, do we kind of just bank on them getting healthy? Because, we just gave Cam Juergens a huge contract extension. It's not like, we can just, you can cut him if you absolutely think he's just toast and literally can never play again, sure. But is it that simple? Probably not. And then what do you do if that is the case? So, I think that's the challenge. The biggest challenge, more than anything, like schematically, is just like, how do you even assess where those guys are physically and know whether you can count on them or not? Because you can't just, invest in insurance policies everywhere on the roster. Like, you've limited resources to work with here, and that's going to be key to their success is figuring out where those guys are at and if they can get back.
Bill, do you want to flip over to the defensive side with you and talk Jalen Phillips? You think a long-term deal is coming for Jalen Phillips? And if you do, where do you think that number falls?
Yeah, this is like a tough one. I feel like a lot of Eagles offseason moves, especially their free agents, like, you can kind of, in years past, it's been pretty like clear that, like, they're not going to keep that guy or they are going to keep that guy. Let's just say last year, for example, like, I think most people felt pretty sure they're going to re-sign Zach Bond, and also were pretty confident they weren't going to re-sign the likes of Milton Williams or Josh Sweat. With Jalen Phillips, that's kind of like a 50-50 to me. Like, I think that's really close. I really think it's going to depend on what the money looks like. If you don't keep him, which I would not hand Jalen Phillips a blank check for sure, but if you don't keep him, what do you really have at edge rusher here? Like you have Jalen Hunt, great year, really encouraging. Nolan Smith, you're going to have the 5th-year option on him, but I don't think you're ready to sign him to a long-term deal now, and maybe if ever, depending on how this year goes. You just don't have a lot there. So you don't have to sign him because you could let him walk and sign someone else in free agency. But I really think that's one where he's also, you look at all these lists, these free agent lists. Jalen Phillips, and this doesn't necessarily reflect how the NFL views him, but it could. He's one of the top free agents in the entire market, really, because it's not necessarily
Yeah.
this robust
He's
class.
26. He's still 26, BLG, and
Yep.
that's the sweet spot of free agency. All the other edge rushers, people talk about Trey Hendrickson. He's 32.
Yeah.
Khalil Mack's 35. Joey Bosa's over 30.
Mm-hmm.
It's at a position. It's crazy to me. Spot Rack, and I don't want to pick on him, but they had his market value at 3 years and about $17 million. If I'm the Eagles, I jump at that.
Yeah. That's what Eagles signed Bryce Huff for, right?
Yeah. I'm like
no way.
And the cap's going from 279 to about 305 or somewhere in that range. Josh Sweat, we bring up a lot here because he got 18 million last year, but that was at 279, not at 305 with the cap. If I'm Jalen Phillips, I'm waiting and seeing somebody's giving me $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you go that, if that's the number, can you go that high for Jalen Phillips? I say yes. What say you?
I think that's like right on the cusp, probably, I'm guessing, of where they would want to be at. I think years matter in there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked enough at the market, but I feel like, I think this is going to be one where I don't know.
Well, let me frame it that way. If you have to pay Trey Hendrickson at 32, $25 million, or Jalen Phillips at 26, $20 million, which way are you going?
Yeah, I'm going with the long-term deal there. Because again, you need answers there long-term too. But I'm not going into the Jalen Phillips negotiations with the mindset, I have to get this deal done. Like, I know the Eagles spent a pick on him, but like that doesn't matter necessarily. Like the numbers have to be right, the deal has to be right, the conditions have to be right for that to happen. So I would like to get it done, but I'm not saying I have to get it done at all costs.
How do you think Vic's future? As we know, we now expect him to be back, but it's always been a short-term thing. And from the perspective of now, it's really focused. This might be his last year. So with guys he does like he likes Jalen Phillips. He really likes Nakobe Dean. Yeah. Do you think that affects how he's thinking? Maybe the next guy, whoever that's going to be, maybe it's not going to be quite the fit. It's under Vic Fangio. Does that make things more difficult, or do you just got to say, we like this guy, we don't like this guy?
Yeah, I don't think you can make moves based on like, Vic really loves this guy, so we have to sign him to a multi-year deal, knowing that Vic might not even be here as early as next year. I think Vic has a voice, or at least, how he probably consults him to some level, more than not at all, which I think should happen. But ultimately, I don't think anyone's telling Howie what to do, and he's going to ultimately do what he thinks is the best thing for both short term and long term of the team. So yeah, I don't think that has a massive ramifications here.
You think Reed Blankenship gets signed?
Yeah, that's another one where I think that's like, I don't know about 50-50. I'd almost go 60-40, like in terms of the Eagles retaining him, because I just don't think his market's going to be out of this world to where the Eagles can't afford him, and he's a team captain here. And I think
was it you, BLG, who floated out him to the Cowboys? Did I read that on Bleeding Green Nation this week? I think I did.
I mean, it's a logical connection.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
So, and I think that would be a great addition for them in terms of like, they want to get a culture guy. They want to get a guy who can help, Christian Parker install whatever he wants to run down there. And he's, Reed's from the South, obviously, so that could be, more of a natural maybe fit for him if he wants to go back down there. yeah, I could see that absolutely making sense for them. So it's possible they outbid the Eagles.
All right, last one from me, BLG. Make sure you follow Brandon on the X platform at Brandon Gouton, bleedinggreennation.com. Your one-stop shop, I always say it, for your Eagles information. Go there every morning to get up to date. But, we talk about free agency. Most of it's about the defensive side of the ball because you have a significant player at all three levels, Jalen Phillips, Nakobe Dean, and Reed Blankenship. Offense, it's like, well, you mentioned before, Jahan Dotson's not going to be back. I think you'd like to have Dallas Goedert back, but he's 31. I mean, I don't think and you made him take a $4 million pay cut last year, BLG. How likely is that? I don't think it's likely. I think of all the offensive free agents, the one guy I want back and I'm targeting to get back is Brett Toth. I thought he'd get a good job as an interior backup offensive lineman, and that's valuable. I think all of us that have seen him over the years would be like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. Guy was good. Got to give credit where credit was due. He can play center. He proved it. He can play left guard. He can play right guard. I think it's important, and they don't have a lot of offensive free agents where it's realistic that they can be brought back in the case of Dallas Goedert. So it's a little off the wall, but I think he's the guy to target on offense.
Well, I know Jeff Stoughton feels the same way. Jeff Stoughton sure loves Brett Toth, and yeah,
it could be Grant Calcaterra because you have a tight end, but you need a tight end. But
please don't bring back Calcaterra.
Yeah.
Well, somebody's got to play tight end.
I know.
Colin Granson. Not
Toth,
a lot of options.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, I think it'd be great to have him back in terms of, hey, they had their best running game of the season last year when Brett Toth was starting for them instead of Cam Jurgens. Now, part of that's they played the New York Giants, but still, the way he was moving out there, he looked great. And I think I just talked about it with not being sure about Dickerson and or Cam Jurgens, and then you have some insurance there if you bring Toth back. I'm guessing his market's not going to be.
No, you're not going to have to pay him. It's going to be the veteran minimum, maybe a little bit more.
But maybe the Saints, they have Pagnetti, right, as their consistent offensive line.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a connection somewhere where he gets, if not guaranteed a starting job, more of a kind of open competition where he can get in the mix. But
I guess the bigger point is that they don't have a lot of ability to move things on the offensive side of the football. They're still kind of blocked in by. Now, if you trade AJ, obviously you have to go draft a receiver at some point, most likely. If you lose Lane, you have to maybe you got to go up and get Caden Proctor or somebody like that. So there's potential wiggle room if you lose guys. But if everybody's coming back, there's not a lot of room to make decisions other than tight ends, really. Yeah. And wide receiver 3, which they don't use anyway. But maybe that changes.
Yes, true.
With Sean Mannion, maybe that changes, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, BLG, real quick, last one. You're on the clock. 23 overall. What position is selected?
Yeah, I'm going to go offensive tackle. I mean, they've been wanting to do it for years now, and they need it. Because even if Lane is back, you don't know how many games you're getting from him next season. And Fred Johnson, I'm going to guess, is going to be gone. The way Fred was talking after the season, it sounds like he really wants to go, just kind of like he did last year, somewhere where he might be able to try to push for playing time more than he can here. Said he views himself as a starter. So at the very least, you're going to need a swing tackle. And I do think this is, I don't know if the guy falls. That's always been the problem, right? Is like the guy they want doesn't fall there. But I'm just going to guess here that he does and the Eagles go that direction. I think offense generally is just the safe bet in terms of like they're going to be spending a lot of money on defense. They have to reinvest in this offense with the young guys.
Keep an eye on that tight end. Everybody says they wouldn't draft a tight end, but Dallas Goedert goes here. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Oregon kid.
Well, they need one. They've again 0 tight ends on their roster. Other than Cam Latu. 0. That's crazy. 0. None.
They re-signed EJ Jenkins to a futures
then,
deal.
There we go, baby.
Bell,
EJ is there.
So,
EJ.
All right, BLG, thanks for joining in, brother. Make sure everybody goes and follows him at Brandon Gout and read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. BLG, thank you, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, bud.
Guys. Sounds good.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Did he leave?
Yeah, Damn, I can't believe we didn't ask him that.
Damn it. Yeah.
That's a miss. My bad, Joe.
Oh, well. No, I should have said it.
Too many Eagles things to get to BLG.
I know.
Appreciate him being here. John, good show today. We talked about some good stuff. As we're going to here he is. Wait. He joined us back. He's going to give us a full pick.
Did you hear me? Try to sneak it in? Yeah, who's going to win? Who's going to win, BLG?
You got me up?
Yeah. I got you.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. Taking the Seahawks.
All right. Sam Darnold. The Sam Darnold revenge tour on everybody who hates Sam Darnold. I do think it's an interesting game, but I think clearly that the Seahawks have the better roster. I just think they're the better team. So I'm with you. I'm going Seahawks, but I'm glad you hopped back on.
Thanks for giving us the pick, brother.
All right, guys.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks. There's BLJ joining us right there on Birds 365. Appreciate him joining back in. Give us a Super Bowl pick. As always, good to get that on the record from everybody. John, I'm actually leaning Patriots right now. I know they're not the better team either. I'm well aware of this.
I think Drake May has played very poorly. I almost think he's due for a decent game.
Yeah, I agree.
So it would not shock me at all if New England won the game, but I do think Seattle, if they bring their A game, they're going to win.
I agree. If Seattle plays well, I think the Seattle Seahawks will win.
By the way, the Eagles have 2 tight ends. I'd like to correct myself. They signed EJ Jenkins to a futures deal. They also brought back Jaheim Bell on a futures deal. He was on the practice squad for a very short period of time. He's a former Florida State tight end who was a 7th round pick of the New England Patriots in 2024.
There you go.
So there you go. They have 2 tight ends.
There you go. All right, good stuff. One super chat here at the end of the show. What's up, Ty Banks? Why not Reich? Super Bowl winner, Steichen, Moore seems weird.
Yeah, we've talked about Frank a lot. I just think it's a weird situation between him and Nick. I just didn't think it. And they've talked. He's been on Cilio's show. Cilio's close to him because they're both Maryland guys. So he's talked about it right on here. I mean, it's a weird setup. It is. It's an odd setup. So I never thought it was going to go that way. It didn't. And it's clear he wants to be back. It's still in the league. So, he's the offensive coordinator of the Jets. It's tough to revisit. I think,
tough spot for Frank and the Jets.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think Frank would like to go to a lesser high pressure environment at this stage of his career as well. But I don't know, maybe Cilio can talk to him about that. And remember, when Frank was here, he didn't call plays, guys. Doug was the play caller. So, he called plays in Indy, but he did not call plays here. So, but I mean, experience over a guy who's only been coaching for 2 years. I thought that was the way they were going to go. That's the way they wanted to go with Mike McDaniel or Brian Daboll, but they weren't able to get it done. And picking who they picked is an interesting choice coming off what they just came off, which was a coach with much more experience, but was a first-time play caller. And everybody harped on that. And now they're bringing in a guy with less experience, significantly less experience, who is a first-time play caller. It is an interesting decision, to say the least.
No doubt. All right, John, good show today. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button. John, your final thought on Wednesday's edition of Birds 365.
It's Super Bowl week. It's not Friday, though, so I don't have to harp in on who's going to win the game, even though I let that cat out of the bag. I think the theme should be when you start, are the Eagles going to be aggressive in-house? Think in-house first when you're thinking about the offseason, because they have that significant questions to be answered before they figure out what they're going to do outside of the house. So that's my theme today.
There you go. I like that. John, good show today, brother. I will talk to you tomorrow on a Thursday edition. All right, man?
All right. And real quick, before I leave, make sure you log me in.
Oh, shoot.
If you can.
I'll do that when I get off the air. I'll do that.
All right, buddy.
All right. See you.
I'll remind you if you don't. All right.
Yeah, all right. See you, dude. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Good show today. I want to thank everybody for being here. I don't think I'm going to be here very long on Zander time. I'm having a major issue with my comments today. I don't know why. I go 10 minutes, the comments don't update, and then they all come in at once, and then I got to scroll back. I don't know. Now it's working, so I can see everybody right now, but it's even just a second ago, it wasn't updated. It was back to 9:48, and I'm like, there's no way we haven't got one comment since 9:48. So having a weird dilemma. It's happened all show today with the comments on StreamYard, so apologize for that. Hope everybody has a good day today, and keep thinking about this Eagles offseason. I think they're in a complex spot where the window went from here after last season to here. And if they don't make the right moves, in my opinion, it could go to here. But if they make the right moves, it could go from here to here again, or maybe even a little higher, maybe not up here, but here. So they got to make the right moves this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. The first one they made is Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard. Will they be good enough? Will they do what they have to do to be successful? We will find out. We will find out. All right, so appreciate all you guys being here. Again, the comments are frozen. The last comment I see now is Flexen saying YouTube is hating. I don't know if that's the last comment or not, but that's the last one I can see on my side. So, Zander time is about debating with the great. You guys are lucky because I've been shredding people on Zander time recently. I mean, yesterday I was freaking destroying fools. I was destroying fools yesterday. So maybe it's good for the great people of JAKIB Nation, all right, to let me cool off for a day. Comments are frozen, so I don't know what's going on. But I don't know what you're responding to me right now. But if you're in here, I do appreciate you. Hit that like button on the way out. Drop your comments down below. If you want to reach out to me, please do it. Haven't been on social media, so for anybody trying to reach me, just shoot me an email, Zander@jakibsports.com. I'll try and get back to all of you guys. I know I've gotten some DMs, but I have not been on socials, or at least my personal socials right now. I've just been managing some other stuff that I haven't gotten to them. So I do appreciate all you guys. Hit the like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES, Eagles.